All right, today we are jumping into a really fantastic ancient text, one that gives us a powerful roadmap for finding focus in our crazy, distracted world. It's called the Sutra of Aniruddha's 8 Great Awakenings. Let's get into the story.
So everything we're talking about today comes from this classic Buddhist scripture found in the Chinese Tripitaka. And it tells the story of a monk named Aniruddha, who actually happened to be the Buddha's cousin. Now, Aniruddha was known for being super diligent, but at this particular moment in the story, he's deep in thought, really wrestling with a huge question.
And this is the question that was really eating at him. I mean, how do we handle the constant pull of desire, this feeling of dissatisfaction, and all the distractions, to find a path that leads to real wisdom and peace? You know, it's a question that's just as relevant for us today as it was thousands of years ago, maybe even more so.
So as Aniruddha is sitting there in his quiet little spot, he isn't just letting his mind wander. No, he's being super methodical. He's sorting through the different qualities that really define a meaningful spiritual life. And this process leads him to 7 really crucial insights. Okay, so what's so powerful here is how clearly Aniruddha lays out these 2 opposing forces that were battling it out in his mind. On one side, you've got the path, which is all about little desire, contentment, and focused hard work. And on the other side, you have the non-path, this life of just endless wanting, constant distraction, and, well, ignorance. He saw crystal clear that you just can't walk both of these paths at the same time.
So the sutra says that the Buddha, with his incredible awareness, could literally perceive what Aniruddha was thinking. He knew how important these thoughts were, so he instantly appeared right in front of his disciple to help guide him.
And here's the thing, the Buddha didn't show up to correct him. It was the exact opposite. He basically affirmed everything Aniruddha was thinking, telling him, hey, these aren't just your random thoughts. These are the foundational thoughts of all great, awakened beings. And then he formalized them and even added to them.
With these words, the Buddha completely validated Aniruddha's deep reflection. He took these 7 personal insights and elevated them into a universal teaching. This is the exact moment when the 8 awakenings are officially born.
So here they are. The first 7, those are all Aniruddhas. But then the Buddha adds this 8th point, and it is absolutely crucial. Delighting in the cessation of proliferation. What does that even mean? Well, it's about finding real joy in quieting down all that endless mental chatter and the complexity our minds love to create. It's really the final piece that completes the whole puzzle. But, having great principles is one thing, actually living them is something else entirely. So the Buddha then laid out a super practical, step-by-step method for Aniruddha to actually cultivate these states of mind and turn them into unshakable wisdom. The training always starts with meditation, and specifically with mastering these 4 jhanas. You can think of them as deeper and deeper levels of mental calm and focus. They're like building a stable platform. Once you have that platform, you can start to see reality clearly, moving from a state of joy all the way to pure, unshakable equanimity. And once the mind is stable, that's when the Buddha introduces the intellectual framework for freedom. It's a set of 4 absolutely profound truths. And these are, of course, the famous 4 Noble Truths. Now, it's important to remember they're not commandments. It's much better to think of them like a doctor's diagnosis. The doctor explains the illness, what's causing it, the fact that there's a cure, and then gives you the prescription.
The logic here is just so simple and powerful. First, you've got to identify the problem. Second, you have to understand what's causing it. Third, you realize there's a way out, a solution. And fourth, you actually follow the path that gets you there. The first truth isn't saying that life is just one big tragedy. The Pali word dukkha is way more subtle. It points to this pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness. Even when we're happy, there's this feeling that it's fragile, that it won't last. That's the fundamental condition we need to really get.
So where does this feeling come from? The second truth points the finger directly at craving, or tanya. It's that relentless wanting, that grasping for things to be different, the attachment to pleasure and the pushing away of pain. That's what fuels the whole cycle.
And now for the really good news. The third truth is all about hope. It says that because suffering has a cause, it also has an end. It is actually possible to put out that fire of craving and to reach a state of lasting peace and freedom, which is known as nirvana.
So how do we do it? How do we actually get there? Well, the fourth truth is the answer. It's not just some philosophical idea. It's the prescription.
It's the practical, step-by-step guide called the Noble Eightfold Path. And this slide right here illustrates what I think is one of the most fascinating parts of this particular sutra. It breaks down every single element of the path into two different levels. You've got the worldly application, which is basically how to be a good ethical person in the world, and then you have the spiritual application, which is aimed squarely at liberation. For example, worldly right view might be believing in karma, but spiritual right view is directly seeing the Four Noble Truths for yourself. It shows how this path can work for anyone, no matter where they are on their journey.
So what happened to Aniruddha after he got this incredibly profound and detailed teaching from his master? The story doesn't just leave us with a theory, it shows us the result.
He didn't just think about it, he put it all into practice. With total dedication, he followed the path the Buddha laid out. The meditation, understanding the truths, cultivating all 8 parts of the path. And in just 3 months, he achieved the ultimate goal, full awakening.
The moment he became enlightened, he spoke this verse that just perfectly sums up his whole journey. He followed the instructions, he let go of his attachments, and he finally, completely uprooted the very source of craving. It's such a powerful ending to a journey that started with that one simple question: how do we find clarity in a world of distraction? And this sutra shows us the answer isn't just an idea, but a real path that any of us can walk.